Hi, this is Stephanie Klapper, 5'1", New York City native, born and raised in Greenwich Village, New York City, and ready to roll and how we roll.
When it comes to working in entertainment, there's a lot of hows, and they all boil down to how we navigate this wild industry. While how we follow our dreams is uncertain, how we roll along the way is in our hands. Welcome to How We Roll, a podcast for actors by casting networks. Hi actors, it's your friend Robert Peterpaul standing on the cliff of what I think is such a tender topic. It's both painful and not, because it's something we all get used to. How to handle rejection and not lose your motivation. The truth is, as artists, we're told no far more often than yes, and that can feel crushing at times. But here's the thing. Rejection isn't the end of your story. It's simply a chapter or two. And according to today's guest, it's not even a great word. Please welcome sensational casting director, my friend, Stephanie Klapper. Stephanie Klapper is a New York-based casting director and the founder of Stephanie Klapper Casting, SKC, an independent casting group. Fun fact, she graduated from New York's Music and Art High School, the Fame School, and since then has become one of the city's most beloved casting directors. Stephanie's award-winning work is frequently seen on Broadway, off-Broadway, regionally, on concert stages, and in film and television. She brings her knowledge to various colleges and universities around the country, including NYU, USC, Syracuse, and more, as a guest teacher and lecturer. Stephanie is also a board member of Casting Society Cares, a Jimmy Awards preliminary judge, and on the advisory board of Say Gay Plays. Her and her team at SKC are most passionate about arts education and working with creative teams to develop new work and expand the scope of established work. Visit clappercasting.com for more. This topic received the most traction we've had on social media yet. That's right, friend. You can submit your cues on social media at Casting Networks and at Rob Peterpaul, or via the link in our show notes. Stephanie answered as many of your questions as we could get to. Thank you to all who contributed. And thank you for being here. Here's How We Roll with Rejection and Staying Motivated, featuring Stephanie Klapper. Claps to that with a K. Let's roll. Today we're covering a universal topic, rejection and staying motivated. A struggle we all have as humans, and it's kind of twofold, right? Because the majority of our career, we're going to be told no. So the trick becomes, how do we deal with the no and stay motivated despite that? But since rejection can be a little heavy, I want to ask my lovely, amazing guest who I admire and have just been basking in the glow of before we started recording here, Miss Stephanie Klapper, a silly question to kick things off. If you'll humor me, Stephanie.
Please, yes.
Okay. So when you're deep into a long day of audition sessions or reviewing tapes, what's your go-to snack?
Oh, I lately, because it's so warm and it's the summer, watermelon.
That's beautiful. That's healthy. That's sweet. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you ever bury it in the sand when you go to the beach? It's supposed to keep it cool.
No, I've never done that, but I don't go to the beach too often, so good to know.
Okay, well, mentally, we're all going to go to the beach of rejection right now with Stephanie, who is such an amazing casting director. Wasn't Stephanie? You're going to get a lot of those today.
I love it.
Everyone, please take a deep breath. Why don't we pretend we're on a beach and we're seeing the ocean waves roll in, because I know this topic can be a little bit triggering, but I thought a nice place to start after my silly Muppet question would be something that I'm inspired by from you on your own podcast that you do, Someone's Thunder. Everybody tune in. It's called Someone's Thunder. You like to start with a quote. So I thought we could do the same.
Oh, I love it. Go ahead.
So I found this one. Somehow I scoured the internet and I just thought it was simple and sweet. Creating any sense of art is rejection.
Mm.
And that is from Miss Viola Davis. So,
It's a great quote and really interesting. I think when we get into this art form, we don't think about rejection. We think largely about creating. And when we're kids, I think that we're not thinking about the business side of it yet, but the joy that it
mm,
gives us in doing it. And I think that's really why we do it. So when the rejection comes into it, it's sort of like a loss of innocence in a sense. Like you've
yeah,
lost you've lost the purity of it because this other color is coming in. And I
yeah.
guess the trick for the lifetime of us who choose to do this forever is how to make peace with what that means and look at it as maybe it is just that it's a color in a larger palette of what we're creating. And it's just
Mm.
one element in how we move forward and still doing what we want to be doing.
That's so beautiful. I love the way you put that. And I wonder too, in learning more about you and researching you, I know your father was an actor and sort of did it for the love of it.
He did dabble in acting, but really he was a musician most of the time, but he was a lawyer to support the family. But if he could
Oh,
have
okay.
just been a musician all the time, that would have been
Oh,
his
that was
passion,
his
I think.
number one love. Okay, because I remember hearing you talk about him doing a show or something, and I thought that
That
must
was
be
when I
so
was a
fun.
little kid. But yeah, that was just he pursued many artistic things.
Yeah, and to see, I guess, a role model doing that for the love of it and sort of not getting caught up in the rejection as much, maybe. I just wondered if that informed you as you now have been on this path.
I think that both my parents were really great about reminding me that it was only in that moment rejection. It
Mm,
wasn't the bigger picture. It was just in the context of whatever it was. But that they also encouraged me about how to move forward from rejection because I mean, I'm trying to remember sort of what the perspective was, but it really was that it was just that thing, but it didn't qualify me in terms of what I was trying to create. There was
yeah.
just the landscape of there's so, and I think as a casting person, taking into account there's so many other things that come into play with making decisions that I try to think of it as the opportunities people are given more so
Mm,
than the rejection that people experience, because I think everything is about who you meet in that time, but it's not only about in the time of that piece, but about there too. What are the other opportunities that come along if I hadn't met that person? Maybe
yeah.
I wouldn't have thought about them for something else. Or
Mm,
maybe that relationship wouldn't have started if we hadn't had that connection together because they did such a great job, but it just wasn't the right fit at that time with
mm.
that team.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And that sort of mindset switch too that you were talking about is just important in life, right? You know, going throughout your day, training your brain to recognize the beautiful things that happen. Like I just saw a bird fly by my window, which was really sweet, versus looking maybe down at my trash bins and reminding myself I got to take the trash out. You know, it's sort of a perspective thing.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, Stephanie, because we actually talk about it a lot on here, but I think a lot of actors don't realize that casting directors also are rejected fairly often. It's a very competitive industry. And I think I mean, you're so acclaimed and wonderful and have a great reputation. Everybody loves you, but nobody can get every project. And I just wonder if you could share maybe the first time you remember being rejected and how that felt to sort of get us in the mood for this
Oh,
conversation.
wow. I have to think about that because I think that, especially being an independent casting person and
Yeah.
being an actor are very similar because we really do put our hearts and souls on the line with every project.
Yeah.
And there's always the question of what makes you the right person to do that job. And I think so much of it is visceral. That sometimes we could think we're the best, but there's so many, as I said before, there's so many things at play. I'm trying to think of the first time I was rejected from a job because I try not to live in
You
that
blacked it
world.
out. I know.
I don't like to live in that world because it just makes me too sad, and then it doesn't make me sort of value the things that are
Mm,
working because I need to really think about that.
yeah. Well, that's a lesson in itself, I think, Stephanie. And I also know you're someone who just followed your passion and you believed that casting was the right fit for you. I know you tried so many different elements of this business, which is also an important lesson for anybody out there just to get those viewpoints. But I thought it was so cool that you weren't per se trained by anyone. You eventually went to someone for advice, but you just had that mission and you didn't really look back. And that might be part of it too. It's like you just knew this was yours and you were going to carve your own path, even if no one had walked that before.
Well, it was interesting. I was just gonna say, I think it was more, I wasn't afraid to give it a try because I didn't know any better. So in a
Oh.
sense, it's like there was no critic in me to tell me I
Mm.
couldn't do this because I didn't know what I could or couldn't do. I just knew that I had enough accumulated knowledge to forge my own path in it. And if it wasn't going to work, then I guess I wouldn't still be doing it. But I think that was part of what worked for me at that time, that it was, we all got to create whatever our own guardrails were when we were all coming up, the group of us that came up at that time in casting to where
Yeah.
we are now.
Such a special group. I think there needs to be a mini series or a documentary on it after
It
going
would
into
be
the
very
audio.
colorful, that's for sure.
I think so. Let's make it happen. I'm just picturing a bowling alley now with the guardrails. I'm like, I need those bumpers. Come on,
Yeah.
let's do it. But it's very similar as an actor. I feel like we start out and we have this dream and it's playtime. It's fun. You're on the playground. You're doing make believe. And then you get all these bits of information. And that's something I've wrangled with. It's almost like getting back to that childlike innocence where you're not remembering what this casting person said, what this director said, what this other actor friend said, and sort of just coming from yourself. And that leads into an interesting part of rejection, right? I think it kind of starts and ends with self-rejection.
Mhm.
And I know all too well if I spiral and reject myself first, I have no shot. So do you see that? Do you think actors unintentionally reject themselves before they even walk into the room or start a self-tape?
So interesting. Well, I think sometimes what happens is an actor could get invited to an audition by a casting person or whomever's dealing with that particular project, and they think there is no way this role is right for me, and they may turn it down because of that. But what I think is our special Spidey skill is that sometimes we see something in actors that even you don't see in yourself. And that's what's exciting about what we do, that it's not always about the obvious, but about the other things you have to offer that maybe you haven't tried yet, but we feel confident are this is the time to try it.
That's a full quote right there. It's not always about the obvious. I like that. Not always about the obvious. It's funny, having been auditioning for a while, I feel like I've built up the callus of rejection. So thinking about it today is like ripping open the wound, as you were saying before. And I don't totally think about it anymore. It just becomes a part of the gig. As a casting director, I wonder, how do you approach rejecting someone that maybe really got close to the gig? Because usually it's radio silence, right? But I assume there's occasions where you call up a friend or you have to sort of deal with that.
Well, I going back to that word rejection, I don't like that word because I guess what it means to me is it does feel a lot like slamming a door in somebody's face.
Yeah.
And I think that it takes away the acknowledgement that what an actor does when they come into an audition room is really difficult. And you're putting your soul on the line every time you come into the room. So I just feel, to me, the way I process the word is it's a very harsh word. So that's why, although in reality, it's true, not every actor will get every job they go in for. To go back to what I said earlier, I like to think that it's an opportunity for us to see what they have to offer and the many ways it could be put to good use, not just for that project at that time. So I know it sounds very Pollyanna-ish to say that,
I love
but
it.
I truly believe it, and I practice it, and I know my colleagues do too. So, but I know when you have your rent to pay and you're excited about the job and you think you're the perfect person for it, and then it doesn't go your way, how could you feel anything but tremendously disappointed and feel like, what's the point? And I guess the point is that you got there when so many people didn't get in that room. And you met so many people, or one person, who maybe you didn't know before.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who used to say, who continues to say, that for every no, it gets you closer to a yes. And I like thinking that way because I think it's true.
Yeah.
You get the no's out of the way, so when the yeses happen, it's that much sweeter.
Yeah, I love that. I've had the great fortune, I don't know why I'm saying this because it always sounds so name dropping, but of interviewing Carol Burnett once. And she said,
Oh, how great.
I know, I did black out, Stephanie. I totally blacked out. She said, I just listened to her talk the whole time. I barely had any questions. I was like, just go. And actually, it was the opposite. I had so many questions, but I just wanted to listen to her. And she said, she'll never forget one of her first auditions, which was almost exactly that. You know, she felt that sort of rejection, but what let her get through it was remembering that her friend got the job, even though it wasn't really her quote unquote friend. And she just said to herself, this isn't my time. This is their time. You know, this is their time. And then one day it will be my time. I wonder from then till now, I guess, overall, do you think the industry has gotten better or worse at helping actors deal with the sense of rejection or sort of being prepared for that? I mean, I feel like people do talk about it a bit more now.
I think there's more transparency now.
Yeah.
And I think that there's more dialogue between actors and casting people now. I think it's not, I just think that there's a more open communication, or I like to think there's more open communication.
Yeah.
So I think it's less mysterious.
What about social media? Because I feel like in the sense that it's kind of twofold, right? Because you can either immediately see sometimes someone else booked it and you just sent your tape in maybe yesterday and then you see someone posting about it, or you can see people auditioning for it in real time, even if they're just posting their slate bloopers or something, you sort of know their type and that they're probably auditioning for that. So in this world where now it's more in our face, I don't know, I feel like there's something to be said for that also being a little bit hard.
I think, yeah, I was going to say that makes me uncomfortable because then it's hard for you to be in your head for what you're doing because you're so busy seeing what other people are doing. And that to me is a little bit of a form of self-sabotage. So I
Yeah.
don't see that as being a productive use of time or of protecting yourself from disappointment
Yeah. Yeah.
and comparison. I don't know.
What is it? Comparison is the thief of joy, my
Oh,
nanny says.
that's really good. I think that's a good phrase to use too.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
looking at other phrases, you know, some rejection myths I think we can bust here today.
Oh, let's hear.
It's so hard not to take things personally, but can you just shed some light for our listeners? It kind of runs the gamut. We have people just starting out, people, you know, very well into their career that we've heard from. So in general, why is rejection almost never personal? I know this is a big question, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's so hard in a business that's so personal, yet it's a business. And I think that's the hard part because when you stop caring, like, what does that mean about your emotional accessibility for doing the work you do? So I think it's how do you make peace with that feeling and make it not take over the experience, but it's an aspect of it.
Yeah.
So
Making peace.
I think so, because I think that anything you're looking forward to or hoping for and it doesn't happen in the way you hope it happens, unless it changes and becomes something even better than you thought would happen. Of course, there's going to be disappointment there, but I think that the trick is how do you acknowledge the disappointment and then find a way to move on from it to create something else.
You know, we love tangible things on here. And I once heard an actor say that their tangible way of processing even preemptively rejection is just to rip the sides up and recycle them when they're done. And just the act of physically ripping it up and throwing them away, it became a ritual of them not thinking about it anymore.
I think that's great, except if they get called back, that's a bummer.
Yes, I know. I have every time I recycle, literally anytime I print something out and recycle it, that's when it's like booking a vacation. It's like,
Yeah.
that's when you know you're going to get the call back in.
So I think always book vacations for sure,
Yeah, that's
as
true.
long
This
as
is
they're refundable.
this is sponsored by JetBlue.
Indeed. I get it's interesting that, we're talking about rejection because it really is a fact of our profession. And I wonder how many professions out there it really is just a part of the day to day. I don't think as many as with what we do. And I think that's what makes us all kind of special in our way because we've almost put ourselves in the line of it. And yet
Yeah.
we're still doing it.
No, I think you're so right. I mean, I think anybody creative in this industry is a special magical human. And I know that in any line of work, every human, there's small rejections every day, right? Even just asking someone to hang out and they can't, that's sort of a small quote unquote rejection. But I look at friends who go in for quote unquote muggle job interviews and it's like they're so nervous and they're going on these interviews. And I'm like, wow, I get a couple quote unquote interviews a week or we have a couple a day
Yeah.
sometimes. And we're just not, I think because it becomes very ingrained in us, we're not.
It's like second nature in some ways.
Yeah.
But yet we still get excited as though it's the first time. And I
That's
think
true.
that's what I love is that you could still get excited about it and still be hopeful. And it's like Vegas, maybe you'll hit the jackpot, you know?
Mm. Well, speaking of the jackpot, I love when you talk about this being similar to Vegas, and I'm going to pull down a slot machine right now and ask you, okay, can you share a story? And if you can't, I'm sure this has happened a lot. If you can't think of one on the spot, it's okay. I have a backup question. I would love an example of a time an actor came in, was absolutely brilliant, but just not quite a right fit for the role. I also imagine, having been a reader for different casting offices, that I learned so much. That was like an education in itself. I would see these people that, you know, maybe won a Tony the season before come in and just be good, but totally not the tone, not right for the project. Have you had those instances too, where even maybe a small note has changed things? Anything come to mind just surrounding that big
Well, I'm
life
thinking
wrap?
of recently we were casting a very difficult play where the two actors in it were supposed to resemble each other enough that they could be, we could
Mm,
believe them as siblings, maybe even twins. And it was so much more than just how terrific the actor was. It was
yeah,
also, could we believe that relationship with each other? And that was hard. And
yeah.
that was, it of course had to do with their acting ability, but it also had to do with the pairing of them and how they could work together. So that
Mm.
was so out of their hands and so in the moment of the material and trusting the other person and how they work together.
I guess, what about casting someone over the years after they didn't get a role? Can you give an example of that sort of path of how maybe
Oh,
you had
that's
to
so
quit?
fun. I love when that happens.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's just really about they get close, they get close, they get close, they get frustrated, they get frustrated, they get frustrated, but they know that my team and I really love them and believe in them. And they know that it's just about like, it wasn't the moment, but that
Mm,
we're working together to make it the moment. And then it
mm.
happens. And then it's great because it seems like you never had the struggle before or the
Yeah.
rejection before. Like it was just waiting for this moment to happen.
It's like childbirth. That's a
But
good
not,
title. Wait.
I don't know if it's quite as painful, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to that, I guess. I can only channel it from a Meisner technique. No.
yeah.
What's a what's a common misinterpretation actors have when they don't hear back from casting? Do you
Oh, I
I'm
think
sure
they
you get
think
this question a lot.
well, but I think more often than not, they don't hear back from casting because
Yes.
we've had to move on and they've had to move on. And sometimes an agent will call about feedback, but often not.
Mm,
And I think it's just everybody has sort of like that has ended and now we have to go on to whatever the next thing is. But I
mm.
think for the actor, to go back to what we were saying before, it's that sense of the experience hasn't been completed.
Yeah, completing the circle. Well, sometimes you hear about people that gets completed in this way of they're rejected. Like I recently spoke with Erica Henningsen, who was
Mm,
rejected from Mean Girls on Broadway,
mhm,
and then later got called back in because they moved some puzzle pieces around, and then rejection sort of freed her. She
mm.
cared, but she didn't care so much that she really needed it, I guess, and that allowed her to book the job. I mean, I don't want to put words in her mouth. She's an awesome, talented soul. And I wonder if, I mean, I'm sure you must have seen that before. It's sort of like,
Well, I think you make peace and become a little more relaxed because you're like, well, I didn't get it the first time. Who knows what they're looking for now? So they called me
yeah,
back. Okay.
I'm going to do a cartwheel and enter the room. No, that's too
Yeah,
much
I mean,
sometimes.
I think I would suspect it is more freeing
Mm,
because it's not the same pressure maybe.
mm,
But the fact that they got invited back also means they were liked enough to still want to see them again.
true. And
So
just
that
getting
gives them
called in is a
permission there.
win, right? Like, especially in these
Totally.
times, I feel like,
Yeah, these times are very strange.
yeah,
Very strange for all of us. And as an
that's a good
artist,
way to
even
put
more
it.
so because we're also sensitive to whatever's going on out there. It's a not a great time.
Yeah. And in the TV film landscape, I know things are even slower right now. And I
Oh, I
think,
know.
I mean, in the Broadway world, I think it all trickles down because now we have these huge stars on Broadway, which maybe is good for the box office, but maybe the everyday actor doesn't necessarily get the shot. And,
I
it's
know. Well,
tricky.
I've been thinking a lot about that because it's so disappointing to look at like it is about box office and opportunities, but it's also like, wait, you guys could be doing these feature films. Give us our lane. Like, let us
Mm,
have our part of the pie.
yeah.
So I see that type of disappointment. I don't
Mm.
see it as rejection as much as tremendous disappointment, but also it's the reshifting yet again, which seems to happen so often in our profession. Things keep shifting.
Yeah, which keeps it exciting,
Oh
but it can
yes, it's
obviously be
exciting.
hard. Yeah, I know, and we recognize how hard this can be. And now I'm trying not to use the word rejection. I like extremely disappointed, sort of like you just said, but we could even just call it a no. And I wonder, do you have any advice or tangible tips on how to process a no? Like you know you didn't get it, and maybe your heart was set on it. What are some things it could be
Well, I
that help
think
you
that
or?
it's okay to feel bad. And I think that
Mm,
sometimes we're like, no, I shouldn't feel bad. But I think that it's okay. Like, it's okay to be disappointed and it's okay to feel like that really sucks. But
mm,
then it's what you do after that or or sort of in conjunction with that. Is it like I'm really hooked on Fourth Wing right now? It's a
yeah.
really good book that has nothing to do with what we do. And
Yeah.
it's really great to take my mind off all the other things going on. And I think that sometimes productive distraction is a really good thing too. Or take yourself out to see a really good movie or just something
Mm.
that like just be kind to yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love that. And productive distraction. Wow, that's a great phrase that you strung together there. I like that too. And you're also
Thanks.
like probably the 10th person that's mentioned Fourth Wing, so I probably need to read this.
It's
It's like
fun. It's
fantasy,
fun.
right?
It is. It is.
I'm a big fantasy buff, so I
Oh
feel like I
gosh,
would love it.
I luckily had the second one all ready to jump into, and I've already started it. I finished
Okay.
the first one on Monday, and here we are into the
Oh
second.
my gosh, I love it. Okay, I'll give you one. House on the Cerulean Sea, if you haven't
Okay, you'll
read.
send it to me after because I'm
Okay,
not
I'll send
writing
it
it.
to you.
Uh,
Yeah, I'll probably cut this out too, so people aren't
cool.
like, okay, what's he talking about? Well, I think another thing that can be really vital is community, right? And I feel
Totally.
like you are a community maker as a person and professionally, just having seen you in person and the way you treat people, but then also you quite literally cast people and build casts and bring them together. What are your thoughts on folks, I guess, A, finding their community, and then B, also having the vulnerability to be honest about quote unquote rejection? Because I feel like we all hear the people saying, oh, I got close to this, I got a call back for this. But people, it can get like a little competitive even between friends.
Totally. Totally. Well, that's like I remember when I was just starting out and I was socializing with a lot of actors and we'd all be at parties together. And the
Hmm.
party was all about what people were going in for and what they were doing. And it was less about just having a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm really glad you're talking about this subject matter today because I think it is such a universal experience. And I think sometimes rejection can come, we could feel embarrassed by
Hmm.
rejection. And I think that's the reason why, if you feel in a safe space with people who you trust, that talking about it, you get to realize just how universal it is.
Hmm.
And then you do share experiences. And then through sharing those experiences, you make discoveries. Because
Hmm.
maybe you both went in for the same role and you didn't know you went in for the same role. And maybe you
Yeah.
had a similar experience. Maybe it was an amazing room, but you just felt off your game. Or
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't an amazing room. Maybe it felt like something wasn't right there. And then you
Hmm.
realize it wasn't about you, but there were other things going on. And sometimes it's just about confirming something, or sometimes it's about a discovery, or sometimes it's just about, well, it just was a bad day.
Yeah. I think that's so helpful. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is when I get something, and I've also learned, like what you said before, if something comes to you that maybe you don't think you're right for, just do it because someone sees something or, it's a chance to build a relationship. But I also love to then, even if I do it and feel like I'm not going to get it, I love to pass it along to people that I think it's perfect for. And I think if we're all pretending that we're the right person and we just didn't get it because, so and so knew so and it was their son and whatever, you know, you'll also cut off the opportunity to then help the people around you. Like if we have these honest conversations, sometimes we can, help uplift a friend. And that's what it's really all about.
Totally. Totally. Well, it's so funny because I was just thinking yesterday I was in the elevator of where I work
Yeah.
and I was heading out for the night and I see that this guy comes in and he looks at me with a huge smile and he wants to say something. And I'm like, do we know each other? He goes, well, I auditioned for you a really long time ago and I bombed. And I'm like, oh, I don't remember that. And he goes, well, I'm not an actor anymore, but he was saying very nice things, but it was sort of,
Yeah.
the point of the story is, I don't remember that he bombed. I knew him, but he hadn't been in my room in over 20 years. And now he was doing something he really, really loved. And he had gone in recently to audition for something, and he realized that acting wasn't really for him anymore. But it was kind of a funny conversation to have in terms of, he remembered this moment where it didn't go a particular way.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my connection with him at all. And sometimes I think the person who's experiencing it has a much more difficult time with it than maybe the rest of us.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's such a fun interaction. And it brings up the point too of, I'm guessing if you bring someone in and they bomb once, from what I've heard from most casting professionals, that's not going to deter them from bringing you in again.
No.
They understand that you maybe have X amount of auditions in a day if you're lucky, that you have a day job, whatever, and that you psyched yourself out, whatever it is. I think there's a lot of forgiveness in this industry that we forget about. Like, we're all empathetic.
Totally. I think, and that's a nice change, I think, too. I think that's come over time, too. The humanity of what we all do I think bringing us all together in that way.
Yeah.
No question.
I love that.
Everybody has bad days. Everybody has circumstances that sometimes make us not at the top of our game, but that doesn't define who we are.
I am going to sing Miley Cyrus to you right now. No.
Go
I
for
want to
it.
sing Hannah
Let's hear
Montana.
it. Let's hear it.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. Do you remember Hannah Montana? Okay.
Very well. Maybe that's where I got it from, by osmosis.
I love that. Well, we're going to get the best of both worlds right now as we dive further into community. While we're in the community subject of the community, I would love to share some questions from our Casting Networks folks.
Oh, great.
We
Let's
asked
do
for
it.
some cues for you.
Nice.
And we got a ton, actually. And
Oh,
some were
I'm
sort of just
glad.
like, why am I not being cast? It wasn't at you. It was just in general. But I weeded through and I found some of the general ones. So if you hear your question, it was probably asked multiple times. And I'm sorry if I don't read your name, but there were a lot. And I thank you for submitting them. So one we got is from @Jake_S30. How do you know if a role is right for you to audition for? And this is we sort of touched on this, but what are your thoughts for Jake?
Hi, Jake. I think that, well, part of it is if it excites you. And if you go, I think I know my way into this, I think that's a great way. Or if it scares you a little because it excites you, but you've never done something like that, but you want to give it a try.
I love that. What about as far as the breakdown and reading it? If you're not exactly like the breakdown, should you let that deter
Well, if you've been
you?
invited in, there's a reason that the breakdown only tells you so much. And
Yeah.
also during the course of casting, that breakdown can become theoretical and become just the beginning of a bigger picture.
Yeah. And look at how many times a gender's changed or whatever's changed about a role. That's a great
Totally.
reminder. So we have another question from Lindsay Waller. Waller, what up? What does sorry, I need to calm down. It's because I'm getting so hot in here,
I
y'all.
love it.
My AC.
Oh,
I need
no.
AC. Help me. I'm
That's
melting.
your AC.
I'm melting. What does just not what we're looking for really mean?
Oof, that hurts.
Lindsay,
That
yes.
hurts. I'm sorry, Lindsay. That hurts. It's whatever their imaginations have created that when you came into the room didn't fit what their imaginations were yearning for. And that feels so personal, and yet it's really about the picture they have in their minds.
Yes, aka don't translate it to you suck. Give yourself a break and try. I know it's so hard. We have another question, and then I'll probably sprinkle a few more in as we go. But we have one, and I hope I say this right, from @JacobRobishu. Okay, probably didn't say it right. Is it good to take smaller background roles or gigs between not working and auditioning?
I think any work is work that if it feeds your soul and your bank account and you feel good doing it, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that'll help you stay motivated. That's something we're going to get into in a moment during
And you never
these.
know if you're going to get upgraded.
True. That happened to me, actually. I did background work and I ended up with one line on an APC pilot. And you know what? That's sometimes how you can get your entry into the union. It's a good point. It really does happen. So the word I saw over and over again when we asked for questions on rejection was feedback. And you touched on this
Mhm.
a bit. Every actor wants feedback. We know that it's not always possible. Casting, you beautiful people maybe have 3 people in an office sometimes, and it's just not possible with hundreds and hundreds of actors. When the people want to know why they're being rejected too, which I obviously totally understand. Do you get, I mean, does it hurt to ask for feedback? What are your thoughts on feedback? Like, will you
Oh,
give it if you want to give it? Should we just
it's
wait?
so hard to say because then
Yeah.
you can open yourself up to getting a lot of inquiries, and we just don't have the ability to do that. I think the
Mm,
feedback is when you keep getting invited back into an office. The feedback is, we really think you're pretty special, but
mm.
we just haven't found the right project for you to be hired for yet. I think
Yeah.
that's the feedback.
Yeah. So look at the action, not necessarily
Mhm.
the words,
Mhm.
which I think helps in life too, because if you have someone you're hanging out with and maybe they're saying things that are like weird, like they're there, they're showing up for you. Anyway, I'm getting
Mhm.
personal. A helpful tool for me is reframing rejection. And we've sort of touched on this here. I love the phrase, my nanny always says this too: rejection is protection. It
Mhm.
wasn't meant for me, but for someone else.
Mhm.
So we can celebrate the person it's meant for. How do you suggest actors reframe rejection if they're looking to have a sustainable career? Because the rejection's never going to end.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Um, I think it's how do you turn it into another opportunity? So,
Mm,
okay, this job didn't work out for me, but what else is out there right now that I'm really interested in? How can I find out about getting that other appointment? Or how can I read that play for something that's coming up soon so I'm really well prepared so I could
mm,
show up to that open call if there's an open call for something. So I think it's always looking at the next thing ahead of you instead of looking behind you.
mm. Oh, I love that. Because then you might trip,
Yes.
literally. What are your thoughts on actors following up with you after not booking something? I know we just
Oh,
went
I
down the
think a note
feedback
is
rabbit
always
hole, but
lovely.
okay.
I think a note always keeps one fresh, you know?
Mm. And I know you can't answer every email, but I know that you're very good at it as well. So that's a nice little tidbit right there. We talked about feedback. That's a similar thing. All right, let's dive into the motivation pool. I'm getting hot in here. I need to take a little dip. You see
Okay.
so many actors walking through your doors. What traits stand out in those who stay resilient sort of
Hmm.
over the long haul?
The ones who come in still excited about doing the work
Hmm.
and have done their homework and are really well prepared and know what the project is they're going in for. I know it sounds silly, but sometimes they come in for the job, but they don't know the dates or when it's happening, or they
Mm,
take for granted certain things like, oh, I have a wedding and you have an understudy, right? Well,
yeah.
guess what? We don't have an understudy, and no, you can't go to that wedding if you're going to book the job.
Yeah.
But also, I think just like really coming in well prepared. I had somebody recently come in for a job and they had a fair amount of time to prepare for it. And they read their sides, they prepared their sides, and they read on either side of their sides the piece, but they didn't read the entire play.
Mm,
And that was really disappointing because they had the time to do it, meaning we gave them a
mm,
length of time in which they can. And I know everybody's busy and has to support themselves, but it was really disappointing that they
yeah.
hadn't done the full amount of, or, at least don't tell me you haven't read it.
Oh yeah,
Don't,
no,
and
don't
don't,
say it.
and don't tell my client because, we get blamed for it, even if they did have the
Oh
material. So,
no.
so, so
And
that
what a
was,
gift to get it. Like you don't always even get the full script or the play or whatever it is. So if you do get it, I mean, at least read the scenes your characters in, I guess, if you don't have time to really read the full thing. But it's such a gift to get the full story. And I've heard you also say, which I think is such great advice, be prepared in the sense of like with your business brain. So look up the theater, look up the producers,
okay.
look up the network that it's on and see, you can get a lot of information from that as far as tone, and your values might not align with that. So see if you even want to do it, right?
Totally. Absolutely. No, I think that's really important. Hence another reason to read the entire piece, you
Yeah.
know. But I think that's a great point going back to what if you don't think it's something that's right for you? And
Hmm.
that's where I think being true to yourself and your values is very important. And if it's not, if it doesn't align with where you are and you don't feel comfortable, it's okay. That's
Hmm.
really okay. I'd rather you not go in for it then.
I'm sure it's subjective, but are you okay with actors passing on things overall? Is it like if they pass on everything, then maybe that raises a red flag?
Yeah, but there are times when people will pass, it's not the right opportunity or they don't feel it's the right fit for them. I get it. That happens at times. Or the salary doesn't align with where they need to be right now in their lives. That happens.
Well, what else happens is we get more questions from our wonderful Casting Networks community. And I stuck one in here about motivation just because I wanted to get into this area first. Something we got a couple times. This is from our friend officially, Beaner Schnitzel, at Beaner Schnitzel, which is a great, honestly, great username. Might take it. Wonder, how do you stay motivated when things are really slow?
Well, first of all, I try to remind myself that it's not the end of my career.
Mm.
Because sometimes
Yeah,
you
no
feel that way.
catastrophizing.
No, but I think sometimes we're all, when it's slow, we all sort of wonder, what the heck am I doing?
I know.
So then I something always seems to come around. And it could be a reading or a great conversation, or I go take myself out to a movie or a play. And that gets me going again.
I love that. Watch what comes into the void.
Mhm.
I think being bored also has gotten very overrated. I think people don't.
Bored? Who has time
Like,
to be bored?
that's what I mean. Nobody wants to be bored anymore. And I feel like when I was a little kid, being bored is what made me get dressed up and go outside and put on a show. Being bored is what made me run into a friend's backyard.
Mhm.
Like, I think when we're bored now, we pick up our phones or
I
we
think you're
like,
right. I think
you
you're right.
know,
There's no quiet. There's
yeah,
never any
quiet.
quiet to just be with your brain.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's when things, I don't know, you could write a play. I think there's a lot of things you could do for
Right?
yourself
No,
too.
that's great.
Yeah. Well, you're
I love
great.
going to libraries. I've got to tell you.
Oh, same.
I really have been trying to go to different libraries in the city just to sort of discover places I haven't been to before.
Do you have a favorite library?
Well, I love Lincoln Center. The
Oh,
Lincoln Center
yes.
Library for the Performing Arts is great. But then there's a great old library. I'm forgetting the name of it, down in the East Village. It's on, I think, Third Avenue between St. Mark's and Ninth. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful old library.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out, and I will also tell you some good libraries when we
Oh, and then the
offline.
42nd Street one is extraordinary, the big one.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh, yes, that
But
one's
yes, you
beautiful.
must.
Yes, I will. I love that. I'm such a library book nerd too. We realized we're very flammable people when we moved because all we have are
Oh,
books and
no.
candles. So yeah,
Oh,
we
that's
could light a
good.
fire. I think so.
Just don't light a fire.
Okay, so thank you. Something I'm curious about are the actors who are maybe resilient. They feel like they, stay motivated for the most part, and they're lucky to get a lot of auditions, but they're just not in sort of like the always booking realm quite yet, and they're feeling a little fatigued.
Mhm.
What's your advice on staying in there? Because like we said, just getting called in is a win, but if you're constantly not booking, there's also that voice in the back of your head.
Go take a class. Maybe it's an improv class. Maybe you just need to get back into scene study and freshen up a bit, find a great teacher who inspires you, and expand your community too.
Yeah. I love that. Because you can also just learn from friends, reading shows together.
Totally.
You know? Well, speaking of not winning the job, but maybe winning the room, is there a green flag you look for in actors to stay on your radar? When you're not necessarily rejecting them. I know we're going to cancel the word rejection here today, but you're not hiring for them for that job. So what kind of keeps someone on your radar? I guess besides talent, besides the obvious.
Gee, I'm trying to think. We had a reader not that long ago who was just so smart and on her game that we started bringing her in for things. We hadn't known her before, and our client had introduced us to her, and she was just so good, and then started booking pretty consistently with us, which was
Oh,
great.
yeah.
But I think that was a case where it was really great to get to know somebody well and see, just get a sense of what they shine doing and their ease at being in situations where they had a pivot. And that was a really great way to get to know them. And I'd say that's happened a few times.
Oh, I love that. Well, do you have any other practical tips for staying motivated? I know you said you'll change the energy by going to a library or going to the movies, which that's such wonderful advice. But I wonder if there's anything else before we sort of close out the motivational end of this conversation.
Gee, I have to think about it because it changes all the time. It
Mm,
could be, is this for me or for other people?
I think it can come from you. And then it will
I
be
mean, I
new.
think
Sorry, Sondheim.
no, please. Well, but it's interesting because I think in terms of staying motivated, I don't, it could be, I just feel like it's like you change lanes for a moment. Maybe it's not preparing for an audition day in and day out. It's not being surrounded by doing that thing, but it is through like a little bit of occupying your brain with something else to then get back on track. And I know I've said that, but I really think that sometimes helps with motivation too. Because if you're constantly, climbing up the mountain, you get tired after a while and you need to take
Yeah.
breaks along the way.
Yeah.
And I think that our profession can feel a lot like a task where we go up, 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 and then we go back. And then how do we get further up? And then we go back. So I think that you need to take breaks and get recharged.
Yeah, that's a great visual. I like that a lot. Because you can't give from an empty cup.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And I think too, there's something to be said for my shout out to my manager. She once said, go get on the train that's pulling into the station. And I have ADHD. So every day, sort of, if I in the moment am like, oh, I said I would rehearse my lines at 4 p.m., but at 4 p.m. it comes and I'm like, I really just want to go for a walk right now.
Mhm.
Sort of, it's okay to follow what you want. And because sometimes, you could fake it till you make it, but it might take an extra hour to then get in the vibe of actually rehearsing. Or you can do what you want to do and then sort of like, I don't know, let the other things come in when they come in, unless you're on a time crunch, obviously.
Well, then you have to be a little more disciplined.
Well, speaking of disciplined, here's another transition. You're so disciplined because you are distinguished and at such a wonderful point in your career. But I wonder, looking back now, with all you've accomplished, what does success mean to you? We've defined sort of quote unquote rejection, but what do you think success really means in the arts?
Jeez. I think if somebody's still doing it, then that's successful. And it could be as a profession, or it could be just because of the love of it. I think success is whatever anyone creates it to be, and not measuring themselves against anyone else but themselves.
You're brilliant.
I've done
I
a
love
lot of
that.
thinking about this.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that so much. And I'm going to read even more fun little calendar rip-off quotes from you with our beautiful game segment, Casting Keywords. I think I might have played it with you maybe
No, we've never
at the
done this.
Artios Awards. Did we do this? Okay, no.
No.
I know I missed you at the Jimmy Awards this year, which I do want to shout out that you're such a great mentor for young talent too. So I know you're very sensitive all around to the word rejection, because I think especially with younger talent, it is triggering. But that's how we built the callus. So let's do this. Sorry, that sounded callous. I'll say a word or a phrase from our work, so something commonly found in casting, and you just respond with the first piece of tangible advice that pops into your head.
Okay.
So sort of like word association, but more advice driven. Okay. We're going to start out with what auditions start with. Slate.
Oh, so bring yourself to the slate. At least in my world, it's the best thing I'm going to get about seeing you. I can't see you in the room if you're slating. It means you're taping from somewhere else. So I'd love to have a spark of who you are.
Oh, I love that. And already, I know I'm like, this is a flash round, but everybody knows I always go on tangents. I meant to ask you before, I pinned this sort of in my mind. When you had said, we were talking about everybody just coming in and sort of leading with their resume versus who they are. I'm guessing that when an actor comes into the room, I mean, maybe they could do this on a live Zoom audition with you as well. I hope they wouldn't maybe do it in a slate, but you'd probably rather see them as a human versus them saying, oh yeah, I just got back from tour. I just, am I
Absolutely.
correct?
Totally.
Okay.
Lead with your humanity.
Lead with humanity. And the same is said with script analysis.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, that goes back to what we were saying about preparation.
So do it.
Definitely do it.
Overall self-tape tip.
Don't make yourself crazy.
I love that. I'm going to take that with me as I go.
Because you could just keep taping and taping. It's never going to be perfect. But, chances are the earlier versions of your tape will be better than the later ones.
More sort of like real and have that energy that's not tired. We talk about that a lot on here too, right, everybody? We're gonna max at 5. We're gonna aim for 5 takes. Don't let yourself go into like the 20s or the
Ah,
30s, okay? I don't want that
oof.
for you. Making a choice.
Tell me more about what you mean by that.
I feel like we hear make a choice a lot as a direction.
Hmm.
And I've asked a lot of casting folks this, and the answers are similar, but I think everyone doesn't realize maybe they have a different meaning of that. So I would love to know
Hmm.
your
I
meaning when you
think,
say
I
that.
think, um, well, how I interpret make a choice is when you come into the room, be empowered with going back to script interpretation, be empowered that your interpretation is the right way for you to come into the room.
Mm, I
So
really love
that's your
that.
choice.
And see, that's actually different from all the other ones too, which is beautiful. All of them are similar but different. So take
Mhm.
take that with you, everybody. Audition attire.
What does that mean? I've never heard that before.
In the sense of attire, your wardrobe.
Oh, attire. I'm thinking attire as in on a
Roll in on one tire. This is
sorry.
how we roll.
Audition attire. Don't upstage yourself.
Mm.
Wear clothes that maybe support what you're going in for, but don't make it to the point that I'm only focused on that.
Yeah, you should wear the clothes, not the clothes. The clothes
Exactly.
shouldn't wear you. Okay,
Exactly.
I'll land that plane. Director sessions.
Oh, well, those are important and bring your A game.
Mm, I like that. Improv in auditions.
Oh, be selective. Don't, if you're a playwright, I think you have to be very careful with improv in sessions and rewriting things if it's not invited.
Mm,
So I think if you've been given text to do the text. If there's something where you're invited to improv within the context of it, have a good time.
I love that. Okay, and the last one I'll say here is not sucking yourself out. So not
That's
getting in your own way.
Oh gosh, that's there's a wonderful teacher author named Sharon Salzberg who says that when the critic shows up in you, she I think named hers Edith, that she invites her out to tea and leaves her at the cafe to get her tea, and then Sharon goes about her work. And I feel
Mm,
like with not do, like not sucking yourself out or sucking yourself out, like just when that critic comes into your head, just tell it could step aside for a little bit so you could get your work done.
I love that. Acknowledge it and then don't put
Move
any
on.
more energy in it. They can deal with the barista. That's so great.
Exactly.
Thank you. Okay, you
Mhm.
win the game. I don't know what you
Woo!
win. You just win for being great. And I know I got to let you go. And I would really just appreciate it if we could end our time together by you sharing a gotten and a given. So we end every episode by getting our guests gotten, which is the best piece of advice they've gotten in this industry that they feel like they took with them. And the given is the best piece they now have to give. So if we could start with your gotten, Stephanie,
Oh,
that would
I
be
think it was
wonderful.
from my dad actually, who reminded me, well, it goes back to what we were saying about, sort of measuring yourself up against other people.
Mm,
And why does this person have this opportunity? Why they have that opportunity? Why didn't I get this or why don't I have that? And it was just everything happens in its own time. And he just really reminded me to just keep doing what I was doing and I'd find my way. And I
mm,
think that that's what has been very helpful.
yeah,
Um, and I guess that's
I love
also
that.
advice that I would pass on, which is
Yeah.
so easy to compare yourself to others and wonder why things aren't happening the way you want them to happen or envision them happening. And
Mm,
and we all have our own paths and it all happens the way it's going to happen.
yeah. I think that's so beautiful. And I know that will apply too to the younger audience members, but I mentioned that you do so much wonderful work with the Jimmies for our young artists, specifically our high school musical theater performers. Is there a piece of advice you feel like you give in those teachings that you would like to share with listeners? People maybe
But with the
just
Jimmy
starting
kids?
out? Yeah, I
Um,
guess
yeah,
listeners
I
that might be
think
that
that the Jimmy
age.
Kid, yeah, well, I think that it's there seems to be this sense that time is going so fast and you have to get wherever that place is to get to be super famous. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of road to travel before you get to that point. And I just think have a great time learning and
Mm,
and and having great adventures and don't worry so much.
I love that. I'm going to take that with me just in life. Because if you're chasing fame, you're going to always be chasing. Let's be real. That is not guaranteed. So sort of just do what you love.
Yeah, and I think that the trap of chasing fame is, when is enough enough, and when have you really gotten there? And I think the answer is, you never really feel like you've had enough or gotten there.
Well, I feel like I got there with you. I got so much wonderful advice, Stephanie. Just to, bookend this with another cheesy transition. I feel so grateful that we have you in this industry as a leader and someone we can look up to, because not only are you extremely knowledgeable and open and vulnerable with sharing all that knowledge, but you're just such a kind-hearted soul. So thank you for being that way and being
Robert,
yourself.
I feel the same about you, and I'm really glad you're in my life. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks
you're
for this
so sweet.
opportunity.
Thank you.